So last time we stopped at verse 22, I believe, of chapter 8. That's what's written up there, but I wrote that this evening. So that doesn't really count if I'm wrong, but I don't think I'm wrong. So that's where we're going to start. Is that where those of you who were here last week recall? Does that sound right?
Yeah.
Because that's what I remembered. Okay. So we were looking at the two chapters, it's personifications, chapter 7 and then chapter 8. And then when we got to verse 12 of chapter 8, it kind of switched. And it was just talking about the properties, or it was talking about wisdom and giving description of wisdom. And then in verse 22, it's still kind of on that. It's talking about wisdom and where wisdom was, or what wisdom is. And it says here in verse 22 of chapter 8, "The Lord possessed me at the beginning of his way, before his works of old." Now, when I read that in the New King James, "the Lord possessed me," it sounds like it means he had me. But it really should be given across the idea that it was created. That wisdom was actually fashioned or made at that time, or came into existence at that time. That's what the original Hebrew word that is being translated there means, more so than he had it, he possessed it. Okay? And what we're talking about here, the beginning of his way before his works of old, as we move through these verses here, it becomes very clear what he's talking about. He's talking about creation, the creation of this world, of this universe, okay? So what this is saying is, when this universe was created, the wisdom that we're talking about here was also created. And you might go, wait a second, wasn't God wise before the world was created? I mean, wouldn't that be the question you might ask? But remember what wisdom we're talking about. The wisdom we're talking about is the skill of living. That's the wisdom we're talking about. Skill in living God's way in the creation that we are living in. That's the wisdom we're talking about. That wisdom is with God, comes from God, and is built in, through, and about, and comes from his character, right? So wisdom, if you want to say in a general sense, in a philosophical sense, is his character. It's built from his character. But the wisdom that we're talking about, that Solomon is penning about, that is built into or fundamentally makes up Proverbs, is the skill in living God's way in this world, right, that God created. And that was put into existence at the very creation of this world. So here's what that means. We didn't develop it. We didn't figure it out. The wisdom of learning or of figuring out how to get along in this world wasn't something that man developed or figured out over time. Think about what the world would teach you man has done. Over time, there's a culture studies and human studies and all kinds of different studies that would tell you, well, that's developed over time. Men, over time, in groups, have eventually figured out that it's better for them to XYZ. So, over time, they've developed these habits. Or over time, they've learned that this is how, and so they've developed these strategies or these things, and that's how they've come up with these wise things. Not true. Anything that is wisdom, anything that is wise, anything that is actually skill in living in God's world, God created and possessed when He created this world. We did not figure it out. We didn't develop it. Isn't that telling? Isn't that opposite to what the world tells you? It's absolutely contrary to what the world tells you. It's contrary. That's why I reject so much of what the world tries to teach me. I reject so much of it. They have little pieces of truth. It's like they figure out something, and then they run off in stupidity. They do this all the time. Psychology does this all the time. They go, man is like this. And you go, right. And here's why. And then they're stupid for the rest of the conversation. No. Stop talking. Everything you just said is stupid. You started out right, and then everything else was stupid. It's constant. No, God is the one. The Lord possessed me at the beginning of His way, before His works of love, before any of this started. I have been established. This wisdom was established. God's ways, the way you're supposed to live life, it was established. The wise way, the right way. So when people go, hey, truth is relative. What's right for what you think is right for you. But what's right for me is right for me. As long as you're happy. No. God's way, the right way, the wise way was established before the world was created. Or as the world was being created. At the very foundations of the world, the right way was established. You don't get to choose. It was established by the Creator. Who gets to write the rules? And put the one who makes it. He gets to write the rules. That's pretty obvious, right? And we all bend to this all the time. Have you ever used a computer? Is there anybody in here that hasn't used a computer? Have you ever used, who here has used an iPhone? That's really one where you bend to its ways, right? Someone else determined, I'm an iPhone user, right? Someone else determined how it's going to work. They wrote the rules. Who got to write the rules? The guy who wrote the program. He wrote the rules. It does what he says it's going to do, right? Hopefully, if he's a good program writer. Right? Well, guess what? God's a really good program writer, and it does what He says it's going to do, right? He writes the rules. You get what I'm saying? I have been established from everlasting, from the beginning, before there was ever what? On earth. We didn't figure this out. Man doesn't have wisdom. Man isn't the author of what is wise. Man doesn't even know what is wisdom. If you go to James, we might pop back here. We probably will pop back here later. But if you go to James, where is it? Is it chapter 3? Where's my wise? Chapter.
Oh yeah, chapter 3, Emily.
Yeah.
Chapter 3:13. It starts at.
There it is. Yeah. Who is wise? Chapter 3, verse 13. Who is wise and understanding among you? Let him show good good conduct and works. But if you have bitter envy, self-seeking in your heart, do not boast. This wisdom does not descend from above, but is earthly, sensual, demonic. For where envy and self-seeking exist, confusion and every evil thing are there. That's the kind of wisdom that man has. Demonic, earthy. That's the kind of wisdom that we have. We're going to talk about the wisdom from above in a little while. But we don't even know what wisdom is unless we get it from God. That's the truth. Verse 24. When there were no depths, I was brought forth. When there were no fountains abounding with water. Before the mountains were settled. Before the hills I was brought forth. While as yet he had not made the earth or the fields or the primal dust of the world. Really trying to make a point here. Wisdom was established before any of it. You don't get to make this up. When he prepared the heavens, I was there. When he drew a circle on the face of the deep. When he established the clouds above. When he strengthened the fountains of the deep. When he assigned, I love this. When he assigned the sea its limit. So that the waters would not transgress his command. When he marked out the foundations of the earth. So, one of the things, this idea of God setting limits. God setting limits. The conversation about God's sovereignty. This is a verse, believe it or not, that really helped me. And I'm bringing it up here. It seems like a weird place for this. But this verse and several others really helped me in wrestling with the topic of God's sovereignty. And so I'm just going to talk about it for a second. Because I think that it's really helpful for us to balance the conversation of God's sovereignty with our free will. And one of the ways we need to understand that is that a big part of God's sovereignty is his setting limits. His setting limits. God, within his sovereignty, has set all of the limits. He gave me free will, but he set all of the limits to my free will. When you talk about free will, I don't have unlimited free will. You understand that? I was talking to a guy who doesn't seem to believe in free will at all, which I find completely incomprehensible. How can you believe you don't make any choices? Do you make any choices? Does anybody in here believe you don't make any choices? How could you live in a life not thinking you make any choices? That's just surprising to me. What do? Do you literally just walk around going, I make no choices? Okay, I digress. He asked me, so do you believe you have a limited free will? And I'm like, yes. I obviously can't do anything I want. I'm a fish today. I don't have a will that's limitless. I have limitations. I obviously have limitations. God set limits. He set bounds. Within this creation, he set limits. He told the ocean, this far and no further. He told the sun, here's your track. He told the moon, here's your track. He told the earth, here's your track. He told, animals and species, you're going to stay within this kind. He told seeds, you're going to stay within this kind. He told, human beings, you can go this far and no further. When Adam and Eve fell in the garden, what did he do? You don't get to eat from this fruit anymore, and he kicked them out. Right? He sets limits. He said, when we fell, he made a way. He didn't say any old way you choose is fine. He made a way. He gave us a way, but he made a way. He has limits. So, although we have free will, our will is not willy-nilly. There are limitations to it. And who is the one that sets those boundaries? There's one who sets those boundaries. And who is that? The sovereign God. He remains sovereign over all of creation. He is the one who chooses what the limits are. He is the one. And guess what? He is sovereign over your free will. So if he chooses for one to have a tighter rein on that person, guess what? He sure can do that. Do you think that Jonah had a little bit, at least for that season? We don't know what else, but at least for that season, did he have a little bit of a tighter rein on him? Absolutely, homie was going to go to Nineveh. Whether he liked it or not. That's where he was going. So for at least that season, his will was being pressed upon by God's will. And I don't know how you can see that moment in Jonah's life any other way. God said, you're going to Nineveh. And Jonah's like, no, I'm not. And Jonah exercised his free will, and God exercised his will over Jonah's. So God can do that. Because he is the sovereign God. So if he wants Jonah to go to Nineveh, Jonah's going to go to Nineveh. Although Jonah tried not to go to Nineveh, Jonah showed that he had a free will by jumping on a boat going the other way. God showed that his will's bigger than Jonah's. Because Jonah went to Nineveh. And I don't have a problem with that. And that's how you see both in action. A sovereign God over Jonah and a Jonah who truly has a free will. But God sets the limits. And here's the limits. Jonah can't actually say no to God ultimately because God put Jonah right in Nineveh. No matter what. He was going there. You get it? And I love this because he set the limits. When he assigned to the sea its limits. That was God. You know what that wasn't? Chance. Creation. I'll get to you. 1 second. Creation is not just by chance.
Right.
But all of creation, and that's what we're also seeing here, was by wisdom. Creation was wisely created. It's not just intelligent design, but it's wisdom. Oh, the manifold wisdom of our God in the design and the creation that he has given. You think about it, he didn't just create it with perfection in the garden in mind. He created it knowing there would be a fall. You think about that. He knew there would be a fall. Because he knows it all together. He knows exactly what was coming. He knows the beginning from it. Remember, I am understanding? Remember that? I am understanding? He doesn't learn. He knew exactly what was going to take place. And he created it with all of that in mind. He knew where it was going. And he created it with wisdom. You know, every time science uncovers some nuance of the creation, and they're like, oh, it's amazing that it took 462 billion years for that to just happen to happen. You're like, oh, you are so stupid. There's no way you could throw enough years at that. That was wisely designed by a God. If it took a long time, I don't know how that is that case, but God wisely designed it, yeah.
I think today is a great example of what you're saying. For example, the seas have a limit. The only way that the seas get out of their limit is through confusion, through a storm, through everything that is destructive. And then when it's all over, the seas go back to their original limits.
Yeah. That's a good point. It's interesting. Yeah. They go back to where they're supposed to be. He orders these things by wisdom. so that the waters would not transgress his command, when he marked out the foundations of the earth. Then I was beside him as a master craftsman. Craftsman. He crafted it. It didn't just happen. And I was daily his delight, rejoicing always before him. Listen. Rejoicing in his inhabited world. This is so great. And my delight was with the sons of men. The world would tell you that this all just happened by chance. That's the first giant lie. That's the first giant lie. And what that lie tells us is that there is no purpose to creation. Right? That's the first giant lie. There's no purpose to all of this. If this all just happened by chance, that really removes purpose. Right? And then the second giant lie is that you're not unique and special within this creation that has purpose. That's the second giant lie. That you are just, ooze that came from, well, now the famous thing is your stardust. That's the stupid, you've heard this. And it's very common now. We are just stardust, right? They've moved us from primordial ooze to stardust, which is so stupid, because how does stars even have dust? But I guess they do. Yeah.
We went to our nephew's wedding, which was very bizarre. But when they got up, that's what they told everybody.
Yeah.
That was their message instead
Right.
of, we are gathered in the, no, we are all stardust and we're wandering around, and when we die, we're going to be stardust again.
Yeah.
It was,
Yeah.
that was it.
They're literally just saying, we are just stardust, and we're just stardust bumping around, into each other, and they're removing the uniqueness of humanity, right? So they want to remove the uniqueness of creation, that it's not special, and the uniqueness of this world, this planet, it's not special, and the uniqueness of humanity, we are not special, right? That is the whole purpose of much of the secular world's messaging, okay? That is what they're doing. But when you read the scriptures, that is the exact opposite of the message of the scriptures. God, in his wisdom, gave great care in designing with great wisdom this world, the earth, our planet, for us, with great purpose in mind. And guess what wisdom's delight is? Us. Right there. And my delight was with the sons of men. And by the way, ladies, that's not excluding women. That includes all of us. That the purpose there is all of us. Right?
And you're right about what they've done to humanity, because evolution, we evolved.
From them.
From whatever, but we evolved into what we are. But now they're saying we are stardust. Like, it's not even evolution. This is what we are.
Right, and we're just all connected and all one, and we're no better than a slug or a leaf, right? And so the question remains, then what does it matter, if you're okay with stepping on dirt, right? Then why can't I step on you? Right? If you're no better than the stardust that's fallen on the dirt, then why can't I step on you? Why is it any less moral for me to just crush you under my feet if I can crush dirt under my feet? That's really where we're going with it. But see, you are an image bearer. You are an image bearer. You bear the image of God. You are unique. There is nothing else in the creation that bears the image of God. You are unique. You are special. You are cherished. You are loved. You have a purpose. Your purpose is to glorify God and enjoy Him forever. And the way you do that is to bring glory to His Son by promoting the very message that He came and died for. It's to bring the gospel to the world, because Jesus is all about seeking and saving the lost. So it's all about the gospel here and now. And when we bring people to Jesus and one day stand in front of Him, we will worship Him and worship His holy name and bring the ultimate glory to Him. That is what it is all about. That is what it's all about. When He delivers His church and His throne to the Father and He says, "Here you go, Dad, it's all yours." That's when it's all going to come together. That is the final purpose. He turns the kingdom over to God. And we remember that we were taught that's the whole thing. Here you go, Dad. It's going to be the thing. And that's the whole purpose. But we have purpose. We have value. And the world is constantly messaging. That's the message, constantly. And what it basically does end up is eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. That's why people live like that. Because if there is no purpose and no value, then what does it matter? You might as well live it up. You might as well get all you can. Drink the marrow, because it doesn't matter. And honestly, if I really did believe that, you better believe I would suck the marrow out of this life. Reasonably. I would. Because I'm a reasonable man. If I seriously thought that there was nothing after this life, I would go stinking crazy and get every ounce of sinful joy I could out of this life. Because that's all there was to get. But that's not what there is. That is a satanic lie.
Amen.
That is the lie. But that's why they live like that. Because they're believing the lie. They're believing it. And so when you see it like that, you at least understand that's why they live like that. Because they're being told they're worth nothing and there's no purpose. Why wouldn't you live any other way? It's reasonable. I mean, at least you can understand it's reasonable. But they need to be broken out of that lie, right? They need to be broken out of that lie.
Pastor?
Yeah.
This discussion started in the first verse of Genesis. When we see the Spirit of God hovering, contemplating, that's what He's doing. This wisdom is coming in. He's contemplating before He starts his work of creation.
Amen. I like that. That's true. I like that. It's very good. But I love that, and my delight. Do you see that? He just droned on and on and on and on about what? I'm going to say it tongue-in-cheek. Mother Earth. Okay? We live in a magnificent creation. Even fallen. It's amazing. I watch nature shows, and I'm just floored with this world. Even in its fallen state, it's phenomenal. I mean, it's beautiful. And you know what I'm saying? It's so amazing. We went on a hike in Gatlinburg in the Smoky Mountains, and we were just tripping out over His creation. It's so amazing. And it's fallen. It's a fractured shell of what it was. And wisdom's delight is in us. What did Jesus, his parable? He bought the field for what? For the treasure buried. What's the treasure? We're the treasure. Right? Isn't that what the parable is? We're the treasure. The field, He's not interested in this world, guys. It's going to burn. This world as it is right now, God's like, stop holding on to this world. What I got for you in the future, that ain't nothing. We're the treasure. We're the treasure. Verse 32, now therefore, listen to me, my children. He's like, did I get your attention? With all of the wisdom poured into this creation, you're the treasure. You're the delight. Now therefore, listen to me, my children, for blessed are those who keep my ways. You're blessed if you keep my ways. Whose ways? Wisdom's ways. The ways that were laid before the foundation of the world. Hear instruction and be wise, and do not disdain it. Why would we disdain wisdom? Because it bucks against the flesh. That's why. That's why you would disdain it, because the flesh goes, you want to do what? You want to throw that out? You want to stop doing that? You want to go where? But it's Friday night. You want to go to Carriage Town on a Friday night and serve homeless people food? What's wrong with you? No, but seriously, right? The flesh doesn't want to do that. Blessed is the man who listens to me, watching daily at my gates, constantly and publicly following after wisdom, waiting at the posts of my doors. For whoever finds me finds life. Life is in Christ. Life is in his ways. And obtains favor from the Lord. But he who sins against me wrongs his own soul. All those who hate me love death. You can only serve one master. For if you love one, you will hate the other. Right? That's what that reminded me of. If you love sin, well, you hate righteousness. Right? So those who hate me love death. Because the way of wisdom is the way of life. It's pretty obvious. Wisdom, it's the way of the Lord. Verse 9, wisdom has built her house. She has hewn out her 7 pillars. This is such a weird verse. And I probably spent way too much time on it. I probably did. You can read hours of commentaries on this one verse, and they go everywhere. I'm telling you, I like talking about stuff that I don't even know what they're talking about. You know, Pleiades and once said, and like, what are we? And this is the 7 sins of the Babylonian. Oh my word, where are we going? What are we talking about? Like, the pillars of the, it is strange where some of the commentaries took this, and I really didn't know what any of them were talking about. But I was like, I feel like there's something here. That's what I was searching. Like, 7 is such an important biblical number, right? And every time 7 is used, my interest is piqued. I don't know about you, but it's just one of those biblical numbers where it's like it's never there without a reason. And well, nothing in Scripture is without a reason. So I feel like it's important, and there's something there. And there's no specific that I'm aware of 7 pillars in a temple that I'm aware of that's like very, very clear. I couldn't find it. So I'm going to cheat. And we're going to go back to James. 7, she hewed out her 7 pillars. Go back to James chapter 3, so we started at verse 13 with the wisdom that comes from earth, but the wisdom from above. Okay, so there's 8 here. I thought there was 7, but there's 8, so I'm going to cheat. Okay? I'm going to cheat. I thought these were the 7 pillars, but there's 8. So I'm going to make it 7 by doing this. I'm going to cheat. Because, kind of, the first, where it says, but the wisdom that is from above is first pure. Okay, so here's how I'm going to cheat. First pure is really kind of like not one of the pillars. Because first pure is really, when it says that, it's like the essence of wisdom. And I would actually teach it this way if I was teaching this passage. First pure, it means the paramount or the most important part of wisdom is that it is pure. That's what that means when it says first pure. First is the paramount part of wisdom. The word first is paramount, right? So the most paramount part of wisdom is that it's pure. And the word pure is clean, morally clean, pure. And so first of all, it's totally pure. So everything about wisdom flows from this one thing. It's pure. Now the 7 pillars follow. That's how I'm cheating. Okay? So I think the Holy Spirit, through my cheating, has given us the 7 pillars of wisdom in James. Are you going to allow me to cheat? Okay, so here's the 7 pillars. Nobody else has anything better. So I challenge you to find something better than these 7 pillars after my cheat. Abby, I wanted something 7. I couldn't find it.
I think that's, in my footnotes, I think that's basically what this verse in Proverbs is getting to.
But I really wanted it just to be 7, and there's 8. One guy also thought this was it, but then he just coupled 2 of them together to make it 7. But my mind wouldn't let me do that because there's 8. But anyways, okay. So if we allow my cheat, then there's 7. First pure, and that's wisdom is pure. Godly wisdom is always pure. It's clean, right? It's not, its motive is pure, right? It's always after the right thing. Whereas man's wisdom is often what? Selfish and has, misguided intentions and all of that. Then it's peaceable, and this word peaceable is actually pacifistic. There's no fight in it whatsoever. Gentle, willing to yield. Oh man, willing to yield. That's a difficult one for me. Willing to yield. When someone else wants their way and you want your way. This really shows up in our cars, I think. Willing to yield. When you're merging, are you that guy when they're merging, when you have the bigger vehicle? Do you do that thing where you pull over and take the 2 lanes when they're merging so that the car can't drive by? Do you do that? Are you that person? Because that doesn't actually help, right?
Depends how big your car is. Now, if you got a big truck, it does help.
I don't think it helps. See, because we're from California, and everybody just merges right at the point of merging, and it's actually no faster or slower than what we do here in Michigan, where we merge 6 miles early. It's really no better.
Everything is slower in traffic in California.
But merging there or merging here, you're still merging. It's it doesn't matter if you merge at the point of merging or you merge 3 miles early. I'm just saying.
If you're the guy that merges 6 miles back, but you cut in front of everybody for 6 miles, it's obviously faster.
That's why it'd be better if everybody just merged at the point of merging.
I agree, but they don't do that. So I
don't be the guy. That's what I'm saying.
It's supposed to be a zipper. It's supposed to be a zipper.
No, you're supposed to merge at the point of merging.
I know. At the point of merging.
Not 5 miles back.
I'll let them know if they have a turn signal on, but
What's that?
if they put their signal on, they're getting over, I'll let them over, but they just flying out there.
How much
So willing to yield. What for a while I was adopting this, and I now, having talked about this, I'm realizing I should adopt it again because I'm not willing to yield.
This should be on your dash.
It all depends on the
You know-
situation.
You know, driving is the tool of Satan because it is so bad for sanctification. Actually, it's good for sanctification because it really tells you what a horrible Christian you are. But yeah, I used to have this thing where I'd be like, you first. That was my goal of driving. I'd be like, you first. I just, you first. And that really helps. You first. But it drives your passenger crazy sometimes when you're just letting everybody go first. Especially when you let the really, really slow bad driver first, and then you're behind them for like 6 miles, and you're like, I wish I hadn't let you first. But anyways.
Well, and just a real quick point on that, my mom brought it up to me once, and I think it's valid. When we're out there driving, we gotta quit thinking of all these other cars as cars. There's people in them.
There is.
So you gotta think of it as that's another person.
It's true.
And I think we get too caught up in, I'm not letting that car in front of me,
It's true.
you know.
But seriously though, putting others first, yielding, Paul put it this way, especially within the church, right? We're supposed to put others first, and especially within the church body. When the Corinthians were at a point where they were actually starting to sue one another. And he was like, what? He says, why not just be wronged? Why not just be wronged? And I think about that all the time. When somebody wrongs me, I really try to take that posture, just be wronged. It's okay. Because the only thing that stops me from that is my pride. I mean, that's the thing that pushes back, right? These are just qualities of wisdom, of godly wisdom, right? I'm willing to yield, full of mercy and good fruits. The guy that looked at it differently than me, he put those two together on his list.
I would have too.
Would you?
Yes, I
Yeah,
would.
so that's another way to look at it.
Right.
But see, I would see him differently in this way. Full of mercy, right? And I would look at good fruits as the fruits of the Spirit. So that's why I would want to separate those, but you could put them together. And that's I think in the Greek, they're probably conjunctive, and that's why he probably put them
Well, I
together.
think if you're full of mercy, you would be full of good fruits.
Oh,
You
well,
see what I mean?
I'll give you that. So maybe you didn't even need my cheat. Maybe
Right.
there are 7. Full of mercy. Wisdom is full of mercy. When you think of a wise businessman, oh, he's so wise in business. Does mercy come to mind?
No.
But it should. But it should. Merciful. Merciful is a key element of godly wisdom. God's wisdom is merciful. That's amazing. Totally contrary to our thinking. Without partiality. True wisdom doesn't have partiality. Think about that. True wisdom doesn't put one person above another person, but the ground is totally level. Nobody is higher than the other in true wisdom. When godly wisdom is applied, everyone is equal. That's amazing. Not the world's way. Anything that is unequal is not Christianity, is not God's way. God doesn't do that. God doesn't see people that way. That is never how He does things. Amen?
Amen.
We abhor, and I don't believe in racism because I don't believe that there's more than one race. Right? There's the human race. I don't even believe in racism. Just because you have a different colored skin doesn't make you a different race. If you're a different race, you can't actually procreate together. You do understand that, right? I have friends who are black-skinned and white-skinned, and they have beautiful babies together, proving the fact that they are actually the same race. It's proven it. They have babies together. They're not different race. So there's only one race. It's a proven fact. So this is called hatred, is what it's called when you hate somebody for a different skin color. You just think you just hate them for some stupid reason, and you've considered them not your equal for whatever dumb reason, right? But that's not the Bible, and we abhor that kind of attitude. And sexism is not scriptural, and we abhor that kind of attitude. There's nothing biblical about that. The Bible puts us all equal, 100%. And partiality, income. The Bible puts us all equal. There's no difference. And wisdom, true wisdom, absolutely fights for that. Amen?
Amen.
And without hypocrisy. True wisdom does not pretend. It doesn't pretend to be something it's not. It's always straightforward, right? Wisdom doesn't pretend. I don't even know where we're at where do we end in Proverbs?
Verse 9 or 1.
Verse 1 and 9? Okay.
Exactly right, verse
So we'll just pick up at 9.